My father grabbed the old passbook from my hands, laughed in front of 200 wedding guests, and threw it into an ice bucket. "Trash belongs with trash," he shouted. The room erupted in awkward laughter. My grandfather lowered his eyes. The man who had spent his entire life sacrificing for this family suddenly looked smaller than I had ever seen him. But what happened the next morning at the bank changed everything. Because when the teller opened that dusty old account, her face turned completely white. Then she whispered something that made the entire bank go silent. "Ma'am, please don't leave." And at that moment, I realized my grandfather had been hiding a secret for over 30 years. "My name's Emma. Growing up, Grandpa Henry was my favorite person in the world. While my father chased money and status, Grandpa chased memories. He taught me how to ride a bicycle, how to fish, how to tell whether a person was good by the way they treated strangers." He wasn't rich. At least that's what everyone believed, especially my father. Dad constantly mocked Grandpa's old clothes, old truck, and simple lifestyle. Whenever Grandpa offered advice, Dad would roll his eyes. Maybe that worked in your generation. The tension between them had existed for years. So, when my wedding day arrived, I hoped they could put their differences aside. I was wrong. The reception was beautiful. Guests were laughing. Music filled the hall. Then Grandpa slowly approached me carrying a small wrapped package. His hands were trembling. "Happy wedding day, sweetheart." I hugged him tightly. Inside the package was an old bank passbook. The cover was faded. The pages were yellow. Guests exchanged confused looks. My father stepped forward. "What kind of gift is that?" Grandpa smiled gently. "It's something I've been saving for her." Dad grabbed the passbook. His eyes scanned the worn pages. Then he laughed. A loud, cruel laugh. "This old thing?" People began staring. Dad raised the passbook high above his head. Everyone looked. Grandpa couldn't even buy a real wedding gift. More laughter. My stomach twisted. Grandpa's face fell. Then Dad walked to a nearby ice bucket and tossed the passbook inside. Splash. "Trash belongs with trash." The room went silent. I looked at Grandpa. His eyes glistened with tears. But he didn't argue. He simply nodded, then quietly walked away. After the reception ended, I searched everywhere for Grandpa. I found him sitting alone outside beneath the stars. He handed me a folded note. "Open it tomorrow," he said, "after you visit the bank." "The bank?" He smiled. "Trust me." Before I could ask questions, he hugged me. The hug felt different. Almost like a goodbye. Part 4. The bank. The next morning, curiosity consumed me. I retrieved the passbook from the ice bucket where it had remained overnight. The pages were damp but readable. I drove to the bank. The account had been opened 32 years earlier. The teller smiled politely. "I'll check it for you." A few moments later, her smile disappeared. Then her face turned pale. Very pale. She stared at the screen, looked at me, then back at the screen. Finally, she stood up. "Ma'am, please don't leave." My heart started racing. "What's wrong?" "One moment." She hurried into a manager's office. 3 employees gathered around the computer. Whispers filled the room. I felt sick. Had Grandpa been scammed? Was there fraud? 10 minutes later, the branch manager emerged. He looked stunned. Part 5, The Secret. "Miss Emma Ra." His voice shook. "This account contains assets worth over $6 million. I nearly fell from my chair. "What?" The manager nodded. Over 3 decades, Grandpa had quietly invested every spare dollar. Stocks, land, certificates, dividend accounts. Everything had grown exponentially. The account was now worth millions. Millions! I couldn't breathe. The manager handed me several documents. "According to these records, you became the sole beneficiary yesterday." My hands shook uncontrollably. Grandpa wasn't poor, not even close. He had simply chosen a simple life. I remembered the note. With trembling fingers, I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. "My dearest Emma, Money reveals character. I knew your father would react exactly as he did. For years, he asked me for this money, not to help others, not to build a future, but to feed his ego. I refused. I wanted these savings to go to someone whose heart mattered more than wealth. You never judged me. You never cared about what I owned. You cared about who I was. That is why everything now belongs to you. Tears streamed down my face. But the letter wasn't finished. There was one final sentence. If your father learns the truth, be careful. The warning came too late. Within hours, Dad somehow discovered everything. He showed up at my house, furious, demanding answers. You manipulated him. I stared in disbelief. Manipulated him? That money belongs to the family. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. For years, he had humiliated Grandpa, mocked him, ignored him. Yet now, he wanted the inheritance. The argument escalated. Then Dad revealed something horrifying. Years earlier, he had secretly borrowed money from Grandpa. Large amounts. Promises he never kept. The reason Grandpa had stopped trusting him wasn't stubbornness. It was betrayal. At his funeral, hundreds of people appeared. People he had quietly helped for decades. Veterans, single mothers, students, neighbors. People whose lives had changed because of his kindness. As I stood beside his casket, I finally understood. The greatest treasure Grandpa left behind wasn't $6 million. It was his example. Because money can make someone rich, but character makes someone unforgettable. And in the end, the man everyone thought was poor turned out to be the richest person in the room all along. Lesson: never judge someone by what they own. True wealth is not measured by money, but by character, kindness, and integrity. Karma always reveals the truth, sometimes when people least expect it. Pinned comment: if you were Emma, would you have forgiven your father after discovering Grandpa's secret? Let me know below. Every comment helps this story reach more people. Retention end screen line. But what Emma discovered inside Grandpa's second hidden safe shocked everyone even more. A week later, Grandpa invited us to his house. Dad expected another argument. Instead, Grandpa presented a folder. Inside were decades of records. Every loan, every broken promise, every act of deception. Dad's face turned red. Grandpa remained calm. Then he said words nobody would ever forget. I was never testing your business skills. He paused. I was testing your character. The room became silent. And you failed. For the first time in my life, my father had nothing to say. Dad stormed out. The family was divided. Some blamed Grandpa. Others blamed Dad. Months passed. Then something unexpected happened. Dad lost several risky investments. The friends who praised him disappeared. The people he impressed vanished. The wealth he chased slipped through his fingers. Meanwhile, Grandpa's wisdom transformed my life. I used part of the inheritance to create scholarships, help struggling families, support local charities. The money grew, but more importantly, the good it created grew. And every time someone asked why I did it, I remembered Grandpa's words. Character is worth more than cash. 2 years later, Grandpa passed away peacefully.